And we are on chapter 3 of Sketches. Nice work. I spun around, surprised by the voice that had called out unexpectedly from behind me. He was old, maybe in his 30s, dressed casually, not big or small, and he had a goofy-looking smile on his face. Maybe it was more of a smirk than a smile. He was by himself, which meant there was only 2 of us standing underneath the bridge. "I really like the way you've used color," he said. I put my hand behind my back to try to hide the can of orange spray paint I was holding. That made no sense. He'd obviously seen me working, and even if he hadn't, I didn't think he could miss the 25-foot-long piece of graffiti that lined the concrete wall beneath the bridge. "You don't often see orange and purple in the same image, but I think you've made it work." He took a couple of steps forward, and I jumped back, scanning the area to the right-hand side. I could run along the concrete embankment and then get over the fence and... "I'm not going to hurt you," he said. "Sorry if I frightened you. I'll give you some more space." He backed away a few steps, and I felt an instant sense of relief, although I wasn't letting my guard down for a second. Who was this guy, and why was he here, and what did he want? "I saw the start of this piece of work yesterday when I was taking the train home," he said. "Train?" I asked. He smiled. "Oh, good, you can talk." I didn't answer. "The train?" he said, pointing to the tracks across the street and behind the chain-link fence and in front of some derelict buildings. "I caught sight of your image last night, and then this morning, on the way in, I saw you working." I didn't like the thought of him or anyone else being able to see me. "I just wanted to come over and have a closer look." "Are you a cop?" I asked. He laughed. "Do I look like a cop?" I didn't like him. People asked a question instead of answering the one I'd asked. "If I were a cop, you'd be under arrest already," he said. I guess he sensed that I wanted an answer. "If you're not a cop, then what are you?" "Maybe I'm just an art lover on his lunch hour." "Yeah, right. And this is an art gallery." "It could be an art gallery, if you consider all the interesting and varied pieces of work that line the walls and buildings around here," he said. The bridge abutments, the concrete walls of the flood-controlled creek, and the abandoned buildings all around here were covered in paint and chalk. Words or images or markings, people trying to show their skill, or maybe just the world know that they really did exist. I think if he were a young man today, Picasso would probably be exploring street images. "Picasso?" "A very famous artist. Have you heard of him?" I snorted. "Pablo Picasso, born on October 25th, 1881 in Spain." I'd done a project on Picasso for an art class last term. He was one of my favorite painters. I loved his abstract vision and the way he used colors. Anybody could paint something the way it actually looked, but he could create a whole new way of seeing things. "I'm impressed," he said. "Everybody's heard of Picasso." Strange as it sounds, some people haven't. And most of those who do certainly don't know his birthday. Did you know that initially his work was dismissed by the art establishment of the day? I knew that. I knew lots. But as far as I could tell, this conversation was going nowhere fast. Time to get to the point. "So what's Picasso got to do with this?" I asked, pointing at my work on the concrete wall. I don't believe he ever did any of his work using a spray can on concrete. But there is an abstract quality to your work. I particularly like that figure on the far left. Excellent. "Thanks," I mumbled. That was actually my favorite part of the whole thing. No, my favorite part was just doing the whole thing. There was something about drawing or painting that just freed my mind up, helped me to escape from the world. Right now, it was the only escape I had. It made me feel peaceful, even though the images I was painting were of hearts and flowers and little birdies and trees. More like jagged lines and clashing colors and weird faces. It made me feel good to lay them down. I think Brent and Ashley would have come with me if I'd asked, but I felt pretty safe down here on my own. Come to think of it now, though, maybe ditching my friends wasn't such a great idea. "Do you know the major difference between your work and that of Picasso?" he asked. I didn't answer. What sort of a question was that? "Picasso never got arrested for expressing his artistic vision," he said. I felt a rush of fear. He was a cop, and he was going to arrest me, and... "Don't worry," he said, reading my expression. "I'm not a cop." "Do I really look like one?" he asked again. "Cops can look like anything," I said. I thought about what Ashley had said about some cops roughing people up. I guess they could. I just know that if I saw you working down here, somebody else might have seen your work. Somebody who doesn't have the same appreciation for it I do for art. What some people see as art, other people see as vandalism. You might want to think about that. How much longer is it going to take you to finish? He asked. I don't know, not long. Then don't let me disturb you. I'll stop bothering you and you can get back to work. I'll just go and sit right over there. He walked over to a cement pillar, wiped it off with his hand, and took a seat. He was staring intently at the painting, like he was studying it. I watched him closely while he looked at the painting. Who was this guy? Why was he here? And... Could I ask you one more question? He said. I didn't answer, which he took to mean yes. Why, specifically, did you choose to use those two colors together? I thought you liked orange and purple. Oh, I do. I was just wondering what led you to make that bold artistic statement. I shrugged. Those were the colors I found in the dumpster behind the hardware store. He laughed. Would you mind if I came back this evening and took some pictures of your work? You want to take pictures of this? I was having real trouble taking this guy seriously. Definitely. If I don't, it will be lost forever. How long do you think it will be before they cover it with gray paint? I guess that's the other major difference between street artist and Picasso. City workers never went around and painted over his masterpieces. So, would you mind? I don't care. It's a free world. We like to think it is, he said. I was wondering, are you self-taught or do you have some special training in art? Despite myself, I laughed. I don't think anybody teaches people how to do this. Not that, specifically, he agreed, but art in general. Have you taken courses? I've taken classes in drawing, and I went to art camp last summer. I'd always dreamed about being an artist. Last summer. So I assume you've been on the streets less than a year? What makes you think I'm on the streets? I asked. Just guessing. People with homes don't generally do a lot of dumpster diving. You said that's where you got the spray paint. That doesn't mean I'm living on the streets, I pointed out. No, that's true. But consider this clue. You still have the purple paint from yesterday's work on your hands. I looked down. He was right. There were streaks of purple paint. I think that most people who had a place to go would have washed that off when they got home last night. What makes you think I didn't use purple today? I asked. You didn't, he said, shaking his head. The purple was on yesterday. He was right, which shocked me. He could tell that as he passed by on the train. So how long have you been living on the streets? I didn't answer. I have something for you, he said as he stood up. I don't want anything from you, I snapped. Back off. And I held the can of spray paint out in front of me like a weapon. He held up his hands like he was surrendering. I have no desire to be part of your next creation. Orange is not my color. He lowered his hand slowly, reached into his pocket, and pulled something out. I'm going to leave this right here, he said as he bent down. This is my business card. He reached over and put a rock on top of it so it wouldn't blow away, and then backed off. I work for a drop-in center. If you need a meal or a place to have a shower... if you need a meal or a place to have a shower, don't bother coming. What did you say? I asked, not believing my ears. I said we're not a place where you can get a meal or get washed up or sleep, although we can help make arrangements for all those. We're a different type of drop-in center. A useless type of drop-in center was what I wanted to say, but I didn't. What we offer involves art. We're a place where you can get materials, things like paint and canvas, or clay and a potter's wheel, to use some of that talent you obviously have. The address is on the card. Maybe we'll see you sometime. He started to walk away and then stopped and turned around. Ask on the street, and people will tell you that the center is legit. Just ask around. He started to walk away a second time, then stopped again. My name is on the card. I'm Robert Erickson. Who are you? I didn't answer. That was none of his business. Okay. Be careful. Maybe we'll see you at the center sometime. He gave a wave and started up the embankment again. Hey! I called out. He turned around. It's Dana. He nodded his head. Okay, Dana. Maybe we'll see you around. And I really do like what you've created here. You have some real talent.